Hey, what's up? Welcome back, Sabscribers. It's your girl, Sab, again, here with another video episode of Suffering of Silence. So I wanted to make this episode because I wanted to talk a little bit more about, I guess my perspective of men's mental health, as it's still June, so it's still Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and I'll just keep going along with that topic, right? So I had been kind of contemplating back and forth on what, I wanted to talk about and just some topics that I wanted to discuss, and points, I guess, I wanted to make on here. Now, I don't take myself as a professional in any way, by any means, but, I guess I've always struggled a lot with understanding men's mental health, especially knowing that who I am and just kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but just kind of the way that I grew up in general, it's really hard for me to have a good understanding of men's mental health. Now, I know in my last episode I talked a lot about my dad and just how I think a lot of these recent episodes I've discussed a lot about how my relationship with my parents have been really strained, especially with my dad, and I guess that's the one I feel the guiltiest about because I could have been a better daughter to him at the very least. I hate being the person that appreciates him more because now it's too late for me to fix that relationship, and I wish I would have made better choices when he was around. But you live and you learn. Unfortunately, I don't get another chance at it. I don't have another dad to make better. But I think the best way I can even change or possibly heal and make up for my mistakes is to just try and be a better version of myself, of course. And that also reflects in me being a partner to whomever I may end up with. Now, I don't know. I don't know what could happen. I really don't know where I stand as far as when it comes to romance and relationships and just how I view that anymore. As far as when I'll ever feel like I'm ready to be romantically involved with anyone or even date in general. I think that I'm in such a comfortable place being alone right now that nothing can shake that. And I think the more I spend time alone, the more I'm able to discover what really is going to work for me and what's not working for me. And I think as I've kind of reflected a lot, I guess when I look back, I always thought about, I always looked at my dad as this awful person because of a lot of the things that he did wrong and how abusive and toxic he was in my parents' relationship, rather than trying to have a perspective of my own, because technically my relationship with my dad wasn't necessarily the worst. A lot of my perception of him was altered by other people's opinion of him, and also my shame and my shame in some way of being half Hmong. And, like I said, I don't ever want to say that my dad was a perfect man, because he definitely wasn't. He had a lot of flaws, as anyone does. And I wish I could look back and just, have loved him in the unconditional way that he loved me. Even with all of my awful mistakes and me not being the perfect daughter that he would expect. But, I can't change that anymore. And my best way of changing is changing myself to be a better person to those around me. But also, in my future relationship and whatnot, I hope that I can be a better version of myself. And, I always I think this is always a hot topic, or it's always a topic of discussion, and everyone has their own preference on how they like to view these situations and these scenarios. And the more I'm learning about myself, the more I'm learning how I like things and how I enjoy things and what type of individuals I want in my life. And I think looking at the perspective of I guess the way that I grew up and the way that I was essentially taught was that a man is just supposed to provide financially for you. But if he can't provide financially for you, then he means nothing. But you should also always do what you can for yourself and more. And if that man can't do more for you, then he's not worth your time. Which I don't disagree with in some regard, you know. But I can't look at a man as just something that is, as someone who's just going to give me what I want. And I think that's the complicated part that I have. It's like, I guess, you know, the way that my mom would always perceive men to be in my life is like, if he ain't doing shit for you, he don't mean nothing to you. And it's more of like, almost like a self-hatred type of point of view, because she had always chosen men who were, or she chose a man prior to my dad that was never a provider in any regard. And she always lacked the ability to understand someone or desire someone or build a relationship with someone on things outside of materialistic reasons. And I mean, who knows what the reasons for her staying with her ex-husband and staying with my dad for as long as she did. But, and it's not to say that I don't feel like my mom loved either of them. It was just more of like, she didn't give them the chance to be a provider in other ways as well. Now, I can't speak for her ex-husband, but I can speak for my dad. I can definitely say my dad was an absolute provider in every fucking way. He seriously always made sure we had everything we needed and more. We didn't always have the best shit, but we had a lot of shit for our circumstances and where my dad's come from, and how hard my dad's worked to get us all where we were. And to think there were 9 of us growing up. And then on top of it, I have a nephew who's only 2 months younger than me. So on top of it all, like, he's taking care of 9, 10 kids. And and more. I mean, I have so many nephews and nieces, but that's besides the point. But my whole point is, my dad always tried to provide for us, not just materialistically, but he was also trying to nurture us in the best way he could, mentally and emotionally. And I know that wasn't necessarily something he was always good at, but he tried his best. And it's insane for me to like reflect on that and notice that, like, I probably got more of the emotional and mental stimulation and nurturing from my dad than I did with my mom. And because of her inability to be emotional and mentally there for us, I don't think she ever understood where my dad's point of view was, and they never saw eye to eye in a lot of situations. And her inability to ever like open up in any capacity with either of those things kind of put us back in so many ways. And I'm more than sure that it probably didn't give my dad a safe space to be emotional and mentally there or involved in the relationship. And you know, I can't speak for him, but that's only my assumption, because I can understand how I feel in my relationship with my mom. And you know, it really would suck to be married to someone, or to have a significant other who could not open that space for you and show and express their empathy and just a level of care for your mental being and your emotional needs, right? Like, I couldn't imagine, well, I mean, I can't imagine that, because a lot of my relationships were that way. But to have been in that relationship for as long as he was, and to not have that, I couldn't imagine being that. And it's not to say that, oh, I'm just gonna be this, like, I'm not saying that I'm willing to be this way for anyone and just every man in the fucking world. But I'm saying that I understand and I see where I'm wrong as far as being an emotional safe space for someone and being a mental safe space for someone, not even just like in a relationship, but even my friends in general, right? But even that, I feel like there's such a difference. I've noticed that for me, in a friendship, I'm absolutely very vulnerable, very open, and very attentive to their needs. But I have a hard time doing that in a relationship, and I can't understand why. And I think it might be because a lot of my life I have been forced to believe that relationships are a sign of weakness. Having a significant other, having a man is a sign of weakness. And instead of my mom teaching me that it is okay to be in love, it is okay to be an emotional safe space for your partner. It's okay to be vulnerable with your partner, but just still learn your boundaries. She just flat out made it seem like it was never okay for you to be any level of safe or open or vulnerable with anyone that you're romantically involved with, which is quite strange because that's completely opposite of what a relationship is supposed to be. But obviously none of us have like a good understanding of what a relationship is supposed to be, and she clearly passed that down to all of us. And I think as I learn to be my own version of myself instead of being a version of what I once knew to be, I've realized that I also can change that narrative for myself, and I also can change who I decide to love. And I think I was always so stuck on like not being with someone or not having a relationship that was as complicated and as muddy and murky as my family. But instead I should have been learning like I want to be better for myself, because I mean, like I said, I'm not sure where I want to be or who I want to be in the future. I feel like in this moment in time, I'm probably so happy and so content with being alone and being single. Because there's just a level of freedom that I feel like I have right now that I've never been able to experience in my life. And should I ever be in a relationship again, should I ever fall in love, should I ever find my person, I don't know, I guess. I hope that I know I'm gonna be this amazing person to them. I'm gonna be able to love this person. Thank you, Wind. I'm gonna be able to love this person in such a way that no one's ever been able to experience me. And I believe that because I believe that I'm capable of all the things that I was afraid to be in the past. I'm capable of being vulnerable. I'm capable of opening these spaces for my partner to be themselves and love themselves, but also be able to have the room to love me too. And I know that, whenever or if ever I'm ready, the person I choose to be with will be someone who can add to my life as I'll add to theirs, And I think I don't even want to get specific on things that I even am or would look for, because I'm not looking for those things. But I just know that I believe in myself enough to be exactly who I just was so afraid to be, and who I never wanted to be, because I was afraid of being this vulnerable person who opened up to people, who actually let someone in. And I can really look back and see where I was missing those key points of being vulnerable and being emotionally available to someone. And it's not to say that I feel like any of my exes were deserving of those versions of me, because quite a few of them are not deserving of that. A lot of them are not deserving of that. Most of them are not deserving of that. And as much as, like, as great as I can talk about, even my recent ex, I would never think to want to be with, I would never want to go back. I would never want to go back to any of them, because I'm just, part of who I am now is it obviously holds a place for those versions of me in the past. But who I am now and who I know I'm going to become, I just don't have a place for any of them in my life anymore. And it's not like it's bad blood or that I feel any resentment towards them in any way, because I don't. Even those who have hurt me in such a way that I would never allow someone to ever hurt me again. Even the ones who have hurt me to such an extreme, I don't feel any resentment towards them. I don't hate them for what we went through together and what we experienced, because at the end of it all, I learned a lot and I became who I was always meant to be. And unfortunately, yes, I had to go through those things, but I'm so happy to be who I am now and who I'm going to become. So, like I said, I want to be more careful in how I approach the men in my life. And I mean that in every way. Like, not just romantically, but even the men in my life as far as my friends. I want to be able to delicately, but I want to be a better person for everyone in my life. Like, especially the men in my life, because I feel like I've definitely taken a lot for granted. And a lot of my guy friends have always been hella ride or die for me. And I hate to say it, but they ride for me even when a lot of my girlfriends don't even. Sorry. But no, for real, they're always down to show up for me whenever I need it. And, I feel like I should be more delicate with their mental health and with their emotions. And, I mean, obviously, like, there's still, like, a certain level that we don't show each other because we're friends, and it would never go that far. But I do care. I do care about my friends, and I wish that there were other ways that I could show them. And I'm gonna learn. I'm gonna be better, because honestly, it fulfills me to give love to the people that I care about. And part of that, to me, if I care enough about someone, is to take the time to really understand them mentally and emotionally and fulfill them in those ways. And I feel like my friends we all pour into each other in that way. And I love that. Now, if I could translate that into a relationship, that would be awesome. I will always have that struggle, that battle. And I feel like one day I'll get better at it. And for now, like, I'm cool with what I have going on in my life, But, a lot of the things that I learned, I was always so afraid. I guess I was always so laser focused on the negative things that I didn't want out of a relationship or out of a partner because of what I've seen in my dad and my parents' relationship, rather than looking at my dad as a person himself and seeing him for the great things that he does have, like the great characteristics about him. Like I said, is an absolute provider financially. He tried to nourish us mentally and emotionally. My dad was there sometimes for us, when it mattered most, for sure. My dad was absolutely there for us, especially, my dad was always trying to be there in all ways. He was trying to provide and protect us as much as he could. But at some point, being defensive and not allowing him to do that for me, I ended up putting up those walls all the time with everyone in my life, and not allowing anyone to be there for me, not allowing anyone to provide for me or give to me in any way. So I clearly have never chosen men for their financial status. Or, not to shit on them, but I clearly have not chosen men for their financial status in the past, and I never will. It's more about, where do you plan to go with your life? What do you plan to do with your talents or your skills or your knowledge? But even in some aspects, I've chosen men based off of the negative things that I've seen in my dad, but also even the great things that I've seen in him. I've chosen men because they're educated, they are hardworking, and they're, they resemble him in those ways. And I subconsciously did those things, and I didn't even realize that. So it wasn't always like because of bad habits or bad characteristics and bad patterns that I was used to having around me. But I'd say, in the more recent times of my life, I've made better decisions based off of better characteristics that my dad did have. And so I'm proud of myself in that way. For a second there, my choices in people I was keeping in my life was sort of declining and just getting worse and worse and worse every single time. But I'm glad that I, changed that. It only took a few times, but it's okay. And I think also understanding that certain people come into your life for certain things, and they don't need to fulfill every need that you have, and they don't need to fill and check off every box that you have on your list. You know what I mean? Like, just because someone's in your life doesn't mean that they have to be a part of every part of your life. And that's a challenge that I feel like I'm always going to face, and I'm always going to have a really hard time with. I have a hard time accepting the fact that I may never meet someone who's going to understand or relate to me in every aspect of my life. And it is really sad to me, because that is something that I feel like I've always wanted, because I've always felt so misunderstood in my life, and all I ever truly desired was to be understood by someone, rather than accepting the fact that there's going to be multiple people that understand me in multiple aspects of my life, because I'm multifaceted. I have so many different parts of me to love and share with the world, that I have to be willing to, I may have to let multiple people into my life, or different parts of me to multiple people. I'm not saying in like a partner, I'm not saying in like a romantic sense, but I mean more like in a friendship. Like, I've always desired and longed to have like this lifelong friend who I can do anything and everything with. But I feel like that's almost impossible. I mean, I'm sure it works for some people, but it doesn't work for me. I have so many amazing friends, but I don't have just one friend who's always down for every single thing, or every single part of me, or understand every single bit of me. And I have to just be willing to accept that, and know that that's okay to not be fully understood by just one person. I guess reflecting back, I see a lot of obviously like our core values and our foundation is built within our childhood and the people we are surrounded by. Like, for me, I was grateful and lucky enough to have like my mom and my dad, but obviously very heavily influenced by my mother. But in a lot of ways, I still was able to choose and pick individuals or things in my life based off of, like, when I look at people in my life, I see parts of, like, why I'm drawn to those individuals, why I'm so attached to those people. And I also see that those certain characteristics within the people that I built my foundation on, my dad, my mom, and there's a level of comfort with them because of that. And it's really sad to say, but yes, I don't feel like I'll ever just be fully comfortable with anyone in every single aspect. I might one day, but I haven't reached that yet. And I think that for now, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with only having a certain level of comfort with certain individuals due to the familiarity that they show, that relates it back to my roots, my foundation, my values, my core, things that I am familiar with and love and value from my father and my mother and my family. So I think a lot of that is what didn't seem to make sense with friends and partners in the past. Why a lot of the time certain individuals just didn't fit in with my life. Because as much as I want to separate myself from a lot of the bad patterns and habits that I've developed over time from my childhood, there are some good things that I should carry on and look for in others. Because there's never going to be someone that's going to be exactly like you or exactly interested in every single thing that you are interested in. But how can we complement each other? So I think I have a hard time understanding that or putting that into perspective when I'm in the moment, when I'm in the moment with my friends, in the moment with my partner, whatever the case is. I think that's a good place for me to really work on. That's something I will work on and understanding. Now, I think I had this revelation a while back, but it's nice to kind of talk about it and like really reflect on it again and really think about it again. But yeah, I don't know how all of this relates to men's mental health, but I somehow made it that way. Obviously, I can't speak much on men's mental health because I'm not a man, but I can speak on how I have been absolutely a villain in some men's mental health and the deterioration of their mental health, which I'm very much sorry for. I don't think that's cute. I don't think that's funny at all. But I can understand where I've been the villain in some situations. But now I can kind of see where I want to be better at. And many people will disagree with me. Like, people will disagree with, you don't want to be his peace. But I'm so sick of the struggle I'm so sick of the toxic cycles and the battle just to make a relationship work. Like, I'm tired of the friction between me and my partner. And should I ever date again? And should I ever choose to be in love again? I really feel strongly that I will not put myself in those situations again. I will not fall in love with someone who I will not. I know strongly that I'm not going to put myself in a position to love someone who is going to give me nothing but a headache and heartache. I trust myself enough for that. And I think this also relates to even some of like recent situations in my life. Like, I know a lot of people would disagree with me allowing people back into my life from my past who have decided to walk out. And they're absolutely not wrong for that. But I think my point of view is, being friends with someone doesn't necessarily mean, hey, we're going to be kicking it, we're going to be hanging out all the time and talking all the time. It could just literally mean like, hey, if I see you, say what's up. But we don't need to be talking about life, and we don't need to catch up about what's been going on with my day and what's been going on with your day. I think it just means it's peaceful, it's cordial here. And I think for me, I just no longer hold space to feel any negativity towards anyone. If I can just feel neutral about about people in my life or from my past who have hurt me, if I can get to a place where I'm neutral with you, like, I'm good, I'm so good. And I trust myself enough to keep myself in that place because I have worked so hard to maintain this space and to maintain this level of peace. And I get it. Yeah, I worked so hard to maintain this level of peace, so why would I allow anyone to come in and disturb it? But I know I trust myself enough to never allow it to cross that line ever again. So I think in a lot of ways, it's kind of me putting myself into a position of challenging myself to make sure I know that I truly do believe in myself. I truly trust myself to make the right choices from now on. And to stand on my boundaries when that is challenged, right? I don't know. That's just me. I'm just a person who sometimes likes a little bit of a challenge, clearly. And sometimes if that challenge means, I don't know, testing my trust in myself and testing my boundaries a little bit, fuck it. Fuck it, might as well. I mean, I'm just in that place now. I could very well change my mind in like 6 months, but who knows? But that's just me. That is just me personally. That's how I feel. And I don't know. I'm not in a place where I'm going to go out my way for anyone who's hurt me before. And I don't feel no type of way towards anyone. But, you know, I do feel like something I've learned, especially recently now, and here's the thing, my podcast ain't shit. I mean, the numbers ain't numbering, but it's all good, because I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not going to quit. But some things I've learned is, like, the people you know are usually never the ones who support you. It's few and far in between that you will find the people that you know who will actually support you and share your shit and listen to your shit and actually interact with your shit when you do something like this, when you're creating things like this. And it's not that I feel any type of way about it, but it's just lessons to be learned. It takes a level of vulnerability that I don't think people understand to be able to create something and put it out there in the world, and to actually start something and actually do it and not talk about it anymore. And I will always appreciate that about a lot of my friends who have put themselves out there and made themselves vulnerable and did what they said they wanted to do and went after what they wanted. And I will always respect that about a lot of my friends. And I guess for me to look at it in that way, I would hope that my friends would feel the same way about me, or the people I know would feel the same way about me. And I don't mean to say it in any disrespectful way, but it's just that I just know. I feel like I'm always a very empathetic person, and I always try to see things in everyone's point of view to respect their experience. And I know not everyone can hold that space for other people, but for me, I will always do my best to be that person for other people. I will always do my best, especially from now on, especially learning what I've learned and the reflection that I've done and like the growth that I've done with myself mentally and emotionally. I will always try to weigh in on the other person's point of view. And I mean, I have in the past. I definitely have in the past. but to also let go of my own ego and let go of my own emotions and my own feelings of the situation, and look at things in an unbiased perspective, I guess that's what I feel like I will always try my best to do. And it's hard. It is definitely hard when you're in the shits. I mean, but I'm ready for the challenge. I'm ready for it. So I think I've rambled on enough. And the wind is just getting windier. But hopefully this all makes sense to people. This is my perspective and my point of view of what I can share with the world as far as what men's mental health means to me. And I will do my best to take care of the men in my life and their mental health and care for them in the best way I possibly can. But they know that I care about them. They know that I got love for them. All my homies out there. But yeah. So I hope that this kind of helps someone or people or anyone. But I really do appreciate everyone for listening every single episode. I hope that I can be able to create more video episodes for you guys and take more time to do these things, but I can't promise that this is always going to be every single episode. But just make sure to follow along on Instagram and TikTok. You can find me at Suffering of Silence Pod on Instagram and TikTok. And of course, subscribe to the YouTube channel now that we're doing video episodes. You gotta like, share, and subscribe, because how am I gonna know that I should keep doing this if y'all ain't liking, sharing, and subscribing? Come on. But yeah, it was good. I think this was a good conversation. Hopefully I hit all my points. So I didn't write down notes. I made a voice memo, but hopefully I got through all my points, and hopefully this changes a little bit of your perspective or share some of your insight. Give me some feedback. I always love to hear it. Share some of your experiences and stories as well, but I'm excited to see what I come up with for the month of July. I think this will probably be the last episode for the month of June. Let me double check here. Yeah, this will be the last episode for the month of June, so I'm gonna see y'all in the next month. And like I said, like, share, subscribe, follow me on Instagram and TikTok, Suffering of Silence Pod, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, Suffering of Silence Pod. Alright, thanks guys. I'll talk to you later. Love you all, subscribers.